Welcome back to Making Records with Eric Valentine. That's me. This is episode 12. As you can see from the title, we're going to take a look at this pretty epic burn pile that happened along the way. It was pretty fun. And we had a little, played some music for friends and family and neighbors that were in the area. Got to get to know our neighbors a little better, which was kind of nice. So we can see all that stuff. Before we dive in, there were some questions from previous episodes. I didn't get a chance to type in responses, so I was going to just answer some of that stuff here, and then and it might be easier. Some of the stuff everybody can check out. And I get it. Like some of these answers or some of these questions are asked multiple times because not everybody has an opportunity to go through and read through everything, every question and answer that's up there. So the ones that are like multiples, I'll do. So a few people were asking what kind of Cat6 cable and tools and connectors I'm using for this install, and so I thought I'd share that with you. It is a company called True Cable. I just found them on Amazon. It was kind of convenient, when I'm way out, kind of in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, and there's not a whole lot of options for me to just go to a store and buy stuff like this. And so, I'm definitely making use of places, like Amazon and McMaster Car and all of these kind of online resources to find some of these parts and bits and pieces and stuff. So here it is. I'm going to pull up the their store on Amazon. You can see the kind of stuff they do. Definitely, are primarily doing this sort of networking type cable. And the reason I went this way, there might be better stuff out there, but I wanted to get something that was an integrated system. So I knew for sure that the little crimp and, cutting tool I was using was designed to work with the cable, because that can vary quite a bit. There are different thicknesses of jackets and overall diameters of the cable, and the tool that you get, it has this little razor blade and you spin it around there, and it really has to be cutting to the right depth, or you'll cut the insulation of the inner wires or something like that. So I didn't want to have to fuss around with making sure I was getting that right. So I knew if I got the True Cable and tool and connector, like everything would work right. I think that's the other thing, is that the crimping part of it needs to match up properly with the connector. I think that is probably more standardized at this point, but just to be sure that the whole system was really going to work right. I've run into that before, having tools either for doing coax cable or networking cable, where it's like the tool that I have is not exactly the right diameter, for the wire that I'm holding in my hand, and it doesn't crimp right or it doesn't cut right or whatever. So that's what I used. True Cable. Find it on Amazon, seemed reasonably priced, and it worked great for this project. The cable itself is pretty stiff and a little bit bulky. Shielded Cat6 tended to be like that. There might be something that's a little easier to work with out there, but it worked fine. It worked fine for this, and I was able to do. We did all of the actual RJ45 terminations on the ends, and I used pass-throughs, for where all the little plates were. And then there was a point in the patch bay, we'll get to this later, but we're actually, trimmed back the Cat6 cable and crimped on pins in places where, Elco pins, where the Cat6 cable is actually going into Elco connectors, which connect to the back of the patch bays that I'm using. So the other end would terminate directly into an Elco connector. That worked fine as well. So that all worked out great. So then, let's see, what was the other thing? Some people are asking the termination box. A few people asked that. I've talked about this before, but I'm using these little links boxes. I'm going to pull that up now. Here it is, again, on Amazon. It's just a box with 4 XLR connectors, either male or female, whichever direction you need to go. And I like these because they are so simple. There's other ones out there that have transformers in them and have all kinds of complicated stuff. And I, at least for the way I'm using, I didn't need any of that. I didn't really want to add another transformer. There's a potential benefit for the ground isolation that transformers would offer, but it didn't really seem to make a difference, because I did get some of the radial ones with transformers and stuff, and I didn't really find any substantial benefit there. It didn't seem to make any real huge difference beyond this, using these little Lynx ones. And so these are as simple as you get. It's just, the connector that brings in the Cat 6, and it just feeds the wires directly to the connectors, and they seem reliable. I haven't had any of them fail yet. It's not like I've been using them for 20 years, but yeah, they work fine, and yeah, they're great. Available on Amazon, easy to get. So that's what I'm doing for the breakouts. And then let's see, what else was there. There was somebody asked about the little shark tool that I showed for separating the wires. I looked and looked and looked. I could not find this thing again. When I get back to Vermont and I can actually look at it and see the manufacturer of that thing, I'll be able to I'll let you know exactly. I couldn't find it again. So just putting in Shark Cat 6 tool didn't do it. So, but I'll figure that out. Let's see. There was, okay, somebody was asking why I didn't use Cat 6 for all the mic tie lines. I guess for me, I had the Mogami cable, and I've used the Cat 6 cable a fair amount, but I've been using conventional mic tie lines for probably 30 years, and I know what I'm going to get from those. This is the first time that I'm actually really installing Cat 6 into a studio setup. They've been used as sort of temporary setups in the past for the Cat 6 mic tie line thing. They've worked, but I'm not like so confident about it that I would just fully commit to that for an entire install. And I had the Mogami wire left over from Barefoot, so might as well use it. So for the larger multi-channel panels where there is either 16 mic tie lines or 8 tie lines, I just used the Mogami cable that I had. And this is the only other thing about using the Cat 6 stuff, is that for every group of 4 channels, the grounding gets summed together, because they're all sharing this one shield connection for the phantom power, and that unifies the grounding for those 6 microphones. And the only time that could be an issue is if you have 4 different microphones, if some of them are tube mics and have their own power supplies, and you're going to 4 different mic preamps, the Cat 6 cable is going to sum all of the grounding on all of that stuff, maybe in unpredictable ways, and cause ground loops. If you're using multi-channel microphone cable, like a Mogami Snake kind of thing, each line is individually shielded and grounded, and you can isolate those grounds if you want to, which is how I do it in the patch bay. I don't unify the grounds on all of my mic tie lines, just for this exact reason. Sometimes I'm, the first channel I'm using, an old Summit Audio mic preamp, and the next channel is an Altec, tube mic preamp or something. And so, like, summing all of those, the grounding of all of those units can be a little bit unpredictable depending on how they did the grounding on each of those units. The potential can end up flowing in one direction or the other and cause a ground loop. So that's the only risk there. And so the Cat 6 thing is definitely great if you're using a 4-channel mic preamp like the MPDI-4 or the API has those units. Then the grounding is going to be summed in that unit anyways. Or if you have a mic, a collection of mic preamps that are part of even a larger, if it's going into a console, then again, the grounding's all summed together. It's not going to matter if the mic tie lines sum those groundings as well. So that's the one thing to consider about the Cat 6 mic tie line thing. Yeah, so that was that. Now, so somebody asked for the backstory on my little wrist tattoo. I guess that was visible in a previous episode here. Okay, this one's going to get a bit sentimental, but screw it. Here we go. There's really I have only 2 tattoos. And there's only been 2 times in my life where I felt like there was an event that was going to mark time, where it's going to be like before this and after this. My life is going to change dramatically. The first one was when I really committed to joining the band T-Ride. So I joined that band when I was really young. I was 16 years old when I joined that band. And after being in it for a little while, I realized, like, this is really what I'm committing to in my life. Like, I could be in this band for the rest of my life. I don't know. But whatever happens, like, this is going to totally, alter the trajectory of my life. This is really defining the direction of my life from here forward. And it really did. Like, it had it was sort of like the genesis of everything that ended up happening for me. Through T-Ride, we ended up getting signed and getting a studio, and I ultimately really, discovered my love and passion for recording, and had the benefit of the studio that we had built for making that band's record, and was able to continue on doing that with that setup. So it really was, there was, if I had not done that, my life would have been, wildly different. There was this sort of turning point. I was at a crossroads right around then, where I could join the band T-Ride, or I had this other opportunity where at that time I was really starting to get into the world of this kind of more like jazz fusion-y stuff. I'd been playing drums for about 10 years at that point, and so I had this opportunity. There was this amazing musician, this guy, Tom Costa, that played in Santana, and he did these incredible jazz fusion records. I met him through his son, and he heard some of the recordings that I was making at home, instrumental music, and he was going to help me make a record of my own music that was more this like instrumental jazz fusion-y stuff. And so then, so I had to make a choice there. It's like, I'm either going to do this T-Ride thing or do this, like, jazz fusion-y thing. And, obviously I chose to do the T-Ride thing. And there was this one song, I got to find this. I'll see if I can dig this up for people at some point. Before I was in the band T-Ride, or they were originally called Telluride, made this 45, and there was this song there that was just unbelievable. It was so crazy. Like, that they were like this weird, like, progressive punk rock band or something. I mean, I just never heard anything like it. It was so wild. And so it satisfied my sort of nerdy, I want to play fancy drum stuff thing. But it was cool. It was like, there was just nothing like it. And so I made the choice to go in that direction, and as they say, the rest is history. So that was my first. It's kind of, I can't really show it, but I have a T-Ride tattoo right here. It's suitably teenage inspired. It's like a skull with a cross smashed through it and says T-Ride. I thought it was very cool at the time. And so then there was this wrist tattoo, and so this one came about. There was definitely a point where I realized that my life was going to be before and after meeting Grace Potter. She had such a profound impact on me. We started off just, I got hired to make a record with her, and we made a record, and then afterwards realized, we really like hanging out, so we continued to do that, and then realized that there was a lot more to it than that, and ended up getting together. It's a very dramatic transition for sure. That was complicated, but along the way, there was a moment along the way that I really recognized that whether we were going to stay, be together, end up together or not, it was unclear whether that was really going to happen or not. Regardless of that, whether we ended up together or not, she already had a huge impact on me. And the way I sort of saw it at the time was that she reintroduced me to myself. That there was a whole part of who I was that had just been sort of like buried away, and she just has this amazing ability to allow people to feel comfortable to be themselves, and she really did that for me in an incredible way, and so from that, after meeting her and having this whole experience with her, it just sort of changed my perspective on who I was. You know, it changed everything for me, and so then we ended up being together, and you know, she was like this, you know, one of these people that when she walks in the room just lights up the whole room with all this incredible energy. And so I started calling her Sunshine. She also has this seemingly endless resource of energy. Like I used to tell her, like, you have your own fusion reactor inside you. You know, like you have your own sun inside you. I don't know where all this energy comes from. It just never stops. It's totally amazing. And so I started calling her Sunshine. She started calling me Moonshine. And so when we were texting, because initially I was still working in the studio, she was off, you know, touring and doing her thing, and so we had, you know, there's a lot of times when we were just only communicating over phones and whatever, and so that was sort of like our sign off. I would do moon, heart, and sun, saying that this moonshine loves you, sunshine, and she would do the inverse of that, and so that was our texting sign off for each other, and so there was just a moment along the way where I just felt like, you know, I just wanted to recognize, you know, what an impact she had had on me, you know, at this point along the way. I just knew it was like everything's gonna be different, and everything has. we're married and we have a 5-year-old son, and you know, and I could not be more grateful for the life that we share together. It's really been wonderful. So there you go. There's the sentimental story about my wrist tattoo. All right, so I think we can get into the actual episode. That was a lot of talking that has nothing to do with the title of this episode. Let's get into it. So the burn pile. When you're doing construction in Vermont, people are in the practice of just burning the stuff that you pull out or don't need, and so I mean, as a Californian, I couldn't conceive of doing that. I mean, that would just, you know, that's just an impossibility in California. But it's very common in Vermont. As we were going along, the builder that I was working with was like, "So where do you want your burn pile?" I was like, "Burn pile? What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, you just, you know, make a burn pile and you just burn it." And I was like, "Okay, well, great. You know, I don't know. Put it wherever you think you should put a burn pile. I've never done a burn pile. I don't know." And so they started doing a burn pile, and at a certain point, they started going, "You better burn this burn pile. Like, this is kind of getting big, you know." And so it got really big, and so yeah, it was to a point where we actually had to just, you know, check with the fire warden who lives right up the road from us. Just like, is this a good day for a burn pile? It's kind of a big burn pile. We got the blessing of the fire warden, and we had a day, and we burned the burn pile. So it was, I don't know, we had a lot of fun with the burn pile. So here's the beginning of the burn pile, me with a stick, trying to get it started. You can check that out.
What do we got going on here, Eric Valentine?
Maybe the biggest burn pile motherfuckers have ever seen
Mm-hmm.
here in little old Waitsfield.
Yep.
So
we have called the fire marshal.
Fire warden.
Fire warden.
Yep, and he said, "Yep, go for it." So
that's right.
Here we go. What does this burn represent for you, Mama?
All the pain, agony, sadness, and sorrow of a barn that will never be a red barn again. Burn, no, baby, burn.
Never be red again. Yeah.
No, for me, it represents letting go of the past and embracing the renewing energy of fire.
Yeah.
May these things spread their seeds elsewhere and find beautiful new homes and become part of the cycle of life.
Yeah. I'm ready to burn all of my expectations. And
Oh, I love that.
yeah, just take what comes. Okay, you ready?
Please don't blow your face off.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
I don't have any expectations.
You're going to expect that.
Well played, sir. Well played.
See if this even
It's
works.
not going to work, is it?
Yeah, this heating oil may not be.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of ceremony to it, talking about what this burn represented to us. I think as I talked about in a previous episode, this whole transition, this whole like moving to Vermont and building this place and selling barefoot and stuff, like, man, nothing went the way I was expecting it to. So that was my whole thing with the burn pile. I am burning all of my expectations because none of them came, none of them happened. And we did finally get the burn pile going. Like, that was another thing I learned. I had all of this. I talked about this, the heating oil. So there was plenty of heating oil around. And so we had this stick and we dipped it in the heating oil. And I thought that heating oil, which is some version of diesel fuel, it'd be really flammable. It's actually not. I was really surprised. We had the end of this stick dipped in diesel fuel. I just didn't know this, and I thought I was going to light this thing and go, you have this stick lit up that we could start the fire with. It didn't light up at all. It didn't hardly burn. It doesn't burn the way gasoline does. Not even close. Gasoline is wildly flammable, and so I learned that. But we did finally get the burn pile going. So here you go. This is the epic burn pile.
All right, Mama, turn around. Yeah, go to your right. That's really cool.
Okay, so kind of, beautiful sight, a big fire going. I don't know what's so compelling about that, but it really is. Once there's a big fire, everybody just kind of stands there and just goes like, wow, that's a fire. So then we realized that it would be really cool to do slow motion burn pile. And so here's the slow motion burn pile. So then we realized it would be really cool to recreate this sort of like cliche, I don't know, Die Hard type movie where you have somebody walking away from the wreckage, the burning wreckage, behind them in slow motion. So here's Mama in overalls and a glass of wine walking away from the burn pile in slow motion. And now here's me walking away from the burn pile. Here's me and Mama walking away from the burn pile in slow motion. Grace's dad, Sparky, walking away from the burn pile in slow motion. Grace's front of house engineer, Alex. Our friend Nick and part-time Undertone employee. And now here is our friend Emma walking away from the burn pile in slow motion with hors d'oeuvres. We had a lot of fun with the burn pile. It was pretty great. And then ultimately, we were all just hanging out, set up just, eating pizza, just watching the burn pile. So here's this.
Okay, Dad.
I can't even eat them having so
What
much
do we
fun.
got going on here, fellas?
Just a little campfire with dinner.
Yeah?
Yeah, we like to have a small campfire.
You got your pizza on a spool.
We're cooking s'mores.
We're getting ready for rehearsal here. And
Big
what's
fire.
that? What's the noise?
That's a big fire.
That's a really big fire.
So I guess that's what you do when you have a big fire. Everybody just sits there and looks at it, just stares at it all day. That's what we did. We couldn't help it. So then this was a time when Grace's band came to town. They were rehearsing. They hadn't played together for a little while, so we set everything up in the barn. It was completely unfinished. There's no sheetrock on the walls. There's no doors. And so we set them up to be able to rehearse there, get ready to do a run of shows, one of which was going to be the Bonnaroo show, the 2021 Bonnaroo show, which I don't know if any of you remember, ended up getting canceled. Not even for like pandemic-y stuff. It was because there was this huge storm and it turned into a giant mud puddle, the place where they have Bonnaroo. And so it got canceled. And then we ended up doing a bunch of stuff there. So, so we ended up doing a live stream of the set that she was going to play for Bonnaroo. So people got to check that out. We filmed that in the barn, inside the barn with no doors and no walls and stuff. But it was super fun. You know, it was this real sort of like Little Rascals energy of just like, hey, let's put on a show. And everybody sort of got together and we were like, you know, just zip tying lights up because we had no lighting system, no nothing. We had, you know, the audio gear that was going to use for the tour. But, you know, so we just kind of threw it together and did it. It was super fun. And then ultimately we ended up inviting our friends and family over and a bunch of neighbors to come, and we set the band up outside just to play some music, and had an opportunity to get to know our neighbors better and just hang out and play some music, have a good time. So here's some of the footage from that.
Says it's crazy how love stays with me. You know when it hurts me, 'cause I don't wanna fight this war, and it's amazing to see me reading through the scene of love and
So it was a really, really amazing night. We ended up, there's this incredible sunset that happened, and so the backdrop for the band was this beautiful sunset, and we had a bunch of families there, and all the kids were just dancing around. You can see Sagan in there. All of that was all the dancing was being led by this gal Lauren, who was working with us for a period of time. She's an amazing spirit, just never misses an opportunity to do this like Burning Man style dancing. So she inspired all of that. It was incredible. And so then the one last thing, so at the end of all of this rehearsal and all this stuff, the band actually had to get in a bus and drive away and do all of the shows that weren't canceled. There was probably a little over a week of shows that needed to be done. And so we actually had the tour bus show up in Vermont and was going to pull out to where the barn was so we could load everything into the tour bus. And and needed to drive over this bridge it's the bridge that goes over the brook that is on the property. And we'd had a lot of big trucks go over this thing. Everybody said, this is a, seriously substantial bridge. You shouldn't have to worry about it, shouldn't. But, a tour bus is extremely heavy. And so this was the moment where that tour bus was driving over there. And I was like 99% sure that it wasn't going to fall into the brook. But there was that 1% that causes all of the anxiety. And so I was just standing there just like, oh my God, this thing better not fall into the river. So we were there watching it to make sure that it made it over the bridge okay. So here you go. You can check that out. So obviously it made it over the river. Since then, I had a structural engineer come out and do an assessment of that bridge, and so I'm relieved to know that thing can hold over 100,000 pounds, which is probably twice the weight of a tour bus. So I don't have to really worry about that anymore. It was very stressful, and people would ask anytime a delivery truck or garbage truck or whatever would show up. They'd go like, what's the capacity of this bridge? Can I drive over there? I'd go, I think so, But now I can tell them, yes, you can definitely drive your truck over there. So there it is, burn pile and hanging out with friends and family, playing music, doing all kinds of slow motion fire stuff. It was a good time, just a little moment along the way. So next episode, let me take a peek here, see what it's going to be, what the title is. Okay, so next one is titled Shutting Down Topanga Ice Studio. So this is the moment where I went back to Topanga Ice, packed up all of that stuff, and now everything is in Vermont. So I captured a few moments there. We'll check that out in the next episode. All right, see you then. Bye.